Good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time it is when you're listening, and welcome to the Digitally Uploaded podcast. I'm Matt Sainsbury, Editor-in-Chief of digitallydownloaded.net. And with me this week we have Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hello. Hello.
Long time no see. How you been?
I've been up and down. I've been sick. I've been healthy. I've been busy. I haven't been not busy.
It's that time of year.
Life, yeah.
It's that time of year. Yeah. Too many things happening.
Yep.
Chill out a little bit. We've also got Trent. Hello, Trent. How you doing?
Hello. Good. I've also been busy, been sick. You know, the usual things. Have a hangover, so I'm part of the hangover cast this week. You know, the usual.
All good. Excellent. So, quickly tuning into the news from last week, the exciting bits of news that happened to start things off. I was quite happy to see the first trailer for Langrissa 1 and 2 HD on the Switch. That's probably a franchise that not too many people are so familiar with, but back in the day, it was kind of considered right up there with Fire Emblem as a tactics JRPG that everybody needed to play. So, yeah, the 3DS one came and went and was disappointing to most people, I think. But this is obviously a remake of two of the classics in the series, and hopefully it turns out well. We still haven't even got an English announcement yet, but I think it will happen. I think there's enough fans out there in the West for it still. Yeah. What about you, Matt? What's your highlight of the news of the last week?
The highlight of the news is not really a news yet at the time we're recording this, but SNK is teasing a new game announcement in a couple of days. In fact, it'll probably actually be announced by the time the podcast gets published, because they're saying the 10th of September.
It'll be SNK Heroines 2.
It'll. I'm guessing the easy guess is King of Fighters 15, but
that would be good.
That would be good. A new Samurai Showdown would be better.
But Samurai Showdown doesn't have Athena in it.
That's fine. Doesn't need Athena.
That's a blasphemy. That is a real blasphemy.
Maybe they could have some new characters.
They could bring Athena.
No. The one thing that King of Fighters does not need is new characters. At all. It needs less characters.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Trent, what about you? What's your pick of the news of the week?
Well, I haven't really been following the news, so the only thing I knew all about was the Nintendo Direct, which then got cancelled or postponed. So I guess that's not really news because it didn't happen, but the aftermath of that is obviously things like, you know, Civilization got leaked, / announced. Then you've got things like Final Fantasy, the Pocket Edition, which got like announced as well. And then you've also got everyone, which is all boo-hoo, I didn't get my 30-minute advertisement and wants free games for it, which is pretty stupid. So yeah, basically I guess I've more been looking at the aftermath of basically no Direct than, you know, any actual news this week.
Yeah, that Direct isn't going to have the impact that it would have had if it wasn't delayed, unfortunately, because a couple of the kind of key announcements have already been leaked. Like you said, Civilization 6, and the next Yoshi game was also kind of accidentally leaked. we all assume it was something they were going to announce during the Direct, but I think it's not going to happen now. So, yeah, that Direct is probably not going to be the exciting one since people already know all the exciting stuff. But anyway, on that note, we will go to some Vocaloid music, get everybody off into the podcast on the right notes, and we will come back and we will talk about, well, we're going to talk about Civilization, actually.
Like in general?
Yeah, exactly, in general. It's bad.
Yeah.
Wow.
そチラ見せのほどつむぎ可愛くないそれならばこそつるむけの放送臭いはしたないわ街は探しのけはってあれとこれとそれとだね秋だなかむすべるようにあなたが今度探すように夏にもねとここに限りも誰というのあらぬようだ降りしきる雨の中野良ゆめきたりを捨て人生だとないの
And welcome back. I hope that music put you in a good mood. We're going to talk about Civilization to start the podcast this week because, like Trent mentioned in the little introduction that we have, the Civilization 6 port to Nintendo Switch was kind of leaked by accident. It was probably meant to be a direct thing, part of the Nintendo Direct show, but because that was delayed, sleuths then went and hunted around the Nintendo site and found this entry for Civilization 6 on the console. And now we all kind of know it's going to happen, which is great because I love Civilization. And I'm looking forward to being able to play it on the go on my little handheld, the console that can. The Switch has actually proven to be pretty good for strategy games. I've been playing Real Politics quite a bit over the last week as well. And yeah, it's not something you'd expect to have on console because traditionally really hardcore, in-depth, grand strategy games have not been a part of console experience, but I'm certainly happy that it's happening. I know you haven't played a Civilization before, Matt, but are you going to give this one a go because it's on the handy, convenient Switch?
I probably will because it's on the handy, convenient Switch, and that makes even bad games good. No, I tease. I've never been a big fan of strategy games because I find them too daunting and confusing. But Civilization seems intriguing, and if it's on Switch, I can play it at my convenience and just dive in and out when it gets too much. So I think that'll be good. I'm also very intrigued. I don't know what the plans are for DLC for the Switch release, but there was I think the most recent DLC, Rise and Fall. Does that sound right?
Yes, that's the one that's not actually in the base game that's been released on the Switch, as far as we know. But knowing 2K, they won't be able to resist putting the DLC in there at some point.
Well, that's what most interests me. So maybe I'll wait until that comes out. But there was something I was reading about it when it first came out. It was a review by someone. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing this right. Sharang Biswas, for a website called Ready Set, wrote a review talking about how it changes to some extent Civilization's focus on just endless conquest and taking over, like violent colonization, and balances things out a bit more so you can still be successful, but by using more diplomacy. and generally not being more collaborative with other nations than trying to take everyone over. And that seems like an interesting direction for the series. So that is what intrigues me most about it.
Yeah, I mean, Civilization's always had that issue where it's a very Western understanding of, I guess, strategy, in that military conflict is pretty much unavoidable, and it's not necessarily the only way to win. You don't have to conquer every country in order to win civilization games, especially the modern ones. There's other routes, like winning the space race or whatever. But definitely military conflict is inevitable as part of the process of going from the start of civilization to being the winner. And it's certainly a game that really pushes you to expand your borders constantly and grow bigger and bigger. And it's very imperialist in that way, I guess. So some other strategy games have been pretty decent at offering alternatives and giving you the opportunity to be a non-imperialist power. But for Civilization to do that, that's a pretty good thing. And I haven't played Civilization 6 myself. I played all the ones previous to it. I'm certainly keen on this DLC if it comes to the Switch, just to see how that plays out and if it is as effective as some of the write-ups I've seen of it have suggested it could be. It would be good. It would be very good.
Yeah. So, like, from what the thing I'm reading is saying, it's got a new loyalty system. So basically, if you are too imperialistic, your citizens get upset, and it makes it harder to be effective as a nation. And if it gets really bad, you can end up just like driving yourself into a dark age.
Yes, I've read that as well. I hope it works out that way. It'll be really good. It just depends on how, I guess, it balances out everything else, because base Civilization 6 is still probably pretty conquest focused. So yeah, but you'll like it, I think, Matt. You'll like Civilization. I know you're not the biggest fan of strategy games out there, but this one's kind of the gateway drug to grand strategy. It's definitely the most accessible.
That's the impression I get.
Definitely the most accessible. Once you get the hang of this one, you'll be ready to graduate into stuff like Nobunaga's Ambition and then the really serious stuff after that. But what about you, Trent? Are you a fan of Civilization?
Yeah,
I know you'll play it because it's on the Switch and you play everything on the Switch. But
everyone on the Switch. I've played Civilization since about Civilization 4 was probably when I got into the series. I sort of looked back at the older ones and were like, oh, these not really for me. But like, yeah, once it became like sort of like the hit 3D sort of thing and expand a bit better, that's when I got into Civilization. And yeah, like, each one still has its own little nuances and extra little things they do, and then it's taken out in the next game, and it gets a little bit annoying like that, because there's some concepts which work really well, and then this could be cool if it gets expanded upon, and then it doesn't. But 6 sort of did that really well in terms of they collected a lot of ideas and sort of made a more coherent game out of it, I guess. And also, like, the DLC you're mentioning also reminds me a lot of the Beyond Earth, or whatever that title was called, the one where they're on Mars and sort of like collecting more corporations and rather than nation states, and then there's like a little bit more to do in terms of like building and being more like they're barbarians, essentially aliens, but there's more communication and stuff in that game. So it looks like they've sort of learnt some of those lessons and what they've utilized in that game to expand into the DLC for Civilization 6 there.
Yeah, it's there is a lot of scope. There has been quite a lot of DLC for Civilization 6, I know that. And again, we don't know exactly what's going to be in the Switch version as yet. We'll probably have to wait for the Direct to actually clarify that. But yeah, it'll be good to see. Hopefully it's great. I've been playing Civilization since the second one, way back when. And actually, Civilization 2 was the first game that really kind of encouraged me to learn after playing a video game. So I was Civilization 2, when you built the Great Wonders of the World, which were these massive projects that took forever to build, the game gave you a little video of that wonder, and that really inspired my imagination. And after I kind of played that, I started to go and research all the various Great Wonders through the history, from the obvious ones like the pyramids and whatever, to the ones that I didn't really know about before, which were stuff like Hanging Gardens and of Babylon and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I learned a lot from Civilization, and it's kept with me through the years, and it was probably the game that got me into strategy games at the start, and I play a lot of them now. So hopefully, Civilization 6 on the Switch helps to find a new audience for the game and get more people involved with strategy games, and fingers crossed, learn a little bit of history in the process, because that's probably the best value I think Civilization has. And on that note, we'll go to some music. I'm not sure if we're going to find anything interesting from Civilization. I know it has a good soundtrack, but it's got a good soundtrack. All the Civilization games do. It's just a matter of whether we can find the perfect track, because it's the music of Civilization is obviously quite reflective and in the background, because you spend a lot of time listening to it. These games are long games. But if we find something interesting that works for the podcast, we will play it now. And welcome back, everybody. So we're going to talk about THQ Nordic, which is, we don't usually talk about a particular publisher with the podcast. We usually talk about games or developers, but THQ Nordic is a publisher that is really, it's come a long way in a very short period of time, really. So a bit of history to kick things off. Originally, there was a company called THQ, and that company went bankrupt badly. That was about a decade ago now? I want to say a decade. And then there was a company called Nordic Games, and Nordic Games didn't go bankrupt. And indeed, Nordic Games bought the rights to the THQ name and a couple of the properties that THQ had, a couple of the franchises, and it rebranded itself as THQ Nordic. And since then, the company has just gone ballistic with buying up every license it can possibly find, really. It's got, well, just over the last couple of months, it's released De Blob all over the place, that great colorful platformer thing. It's released Titan Quest on just about everything, that Diablo clone, that is pretty damn good. It's got Darksiders coming up, the third one as well. And it's just bought Kingdoms of Amalur, which was a open worldish RPG that EA had previously published and was a catastrophic failure commercially and sent the developer bankrupt after just the one game. But THQ Nordic has bought it, and we assume they plan on doing something with it, which would be pretty good. Oh, they also have Time Splitters, don't they? Yes, I believe they also have Time Splitters. So yeah, this company is just growing and growing and growing, and it's one that I think a lot of people weren't really paying attention to. It's kind of it was a mid-tier publisher as such, but at the rate it's picking up licenses and doing new things with those licenses, it's going to be a pretty major one pretty soon, I would imagine. Matt, what are your thoughts on THQ as a company? THQ Nordic, not THQ. THQ was a pretty bad company. That's why it's no longer around.
I'm reserving judgment until I see what they do with Time Splitters. Because
yes,
either they'll do it justice or they won't, and that will determine.
Maybe they'll make a good game.
Yeah,
Ooh.
that would be good actually for that series.
Time Splitters was great. Even I like Time Splitters. I don't like shooting things.
Yeah. No,
but yeah, it was a big pickup for them.
Yeah, I really like the Time Splitters, and I'm looking. One assumes they'll do some sort of remastered collection, which would be good. Possibly even a new game, which would be better. But yeah, I think I'm really impressed by what they're doing, and quite surprised. I wonder where they have the money for all these acquisitions, but
yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? They've obviously got very deep pockets because they've also purchased. They also acquired another publisher in Deep Silver. Deep Silver is a pretty major publisher in its own right. It has licenses to Atlas Games in the West, or not in the West, in Europe and Australia. So it's big in its own right, and THQ Nordic just bought it. I don't know where they get all their money from, but they obviously get a lot. But yeah, I think their strategy seems to be so far to take these properties and release the originals on modern consoles. So that's where you can get Diblob and Diblob 2 and Titan Quest and all that stuff on current consoles because of recent releases. And I imagine that will happen with Time Splitters and Kingdoms of Amalur as well. And I would assume that they then use that to kind of figure out the long-term viability of that franchise, whether it's worth to creating a new game or how much budget they should throw at a new game in that franchise, depending on how the originals sell on modern platforms. Which is, yeah, there could be a lot if people keep buying them, or if people buy them a lot.
They should just put it on the Switch. Anything will sell on the Switch.
Yeah.
Yes, anything would sell on the Switch. Legend of Korra was another one. Legend of Korra, I think it was. That's like that action platformer thing with the Fox character. THQ has licensed for that one as well.
What? That was a platinum game based on the cartoon.
Oh, was it? Well, I'm pretty sure THQ Nordic has the license for that one too.
Like this spin-off of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, is that where it came from?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They also have Black Forest Games, the one which made that Gina Sisters Kickstarter remake thingy.
Oh, they actually own that, do they?
Oh.
See, this is the thing. THQ Nordic, every time you see a game, it's probably published by them these days.
Yeah.
Definitely,
But I do, aside from Time Splitters, I do hope they re-release Kingdoms of Amalur, because that was a very enjoyable game despite its commercial failure. I think
it really was. I was actually disappointed on behalf of EA, which is not something I generally say. But I thought that EA deserved to be rewarded for actually backing that one because it was good. It plays a bit like, I guess, a single-player MMO, which was not a thing that was that common back on the PS3 era when that game came out. And it certainly scratched an itch, being able to play an MMO-style game without having to deal with other players. Yeah, it was a big thing.
I think it began development as an MMO, and so that's why at some point they decided not to do that, but there's a lot of that same DNA in there. And the result was really good. I think it was one of the first platinum trophies I ever got, which was, if you know me and open world games, I don't often spend enough time with them to actually do all the side quests and all the other nonsense that you have to do to get that. But
especially that one. That was a
Yeah.
particularly big game anyway.
That was huge.
That would have been a serious time commitment, Matt.
Yeah,
I'm impressed.
that was back before the days of the Switch and 6,000 games coming out every hour. So
Yeah,
there was more time then.
I'm hoping for a new Titan Quest myself.
That would be good too.
I love Titan Quest. I really, really love Titan Quest. Perhaps, this is going to be controversial to say it, but perhaps I even like it more than Diablo itself. I don't know. The Greek setting really gets me, and it's well written, and it's good fantasy. It's good fantasy, and it'd be great to see a new one because the Diablo clone genre as such is really taking off anyway. So I'm hoping that Titan Quest has sold enough on Switch and PS4 and whatever to justify a new one. Because that's the problem with THQ in Nordic. It has so many properties now, it doesn't actually have to create a game in any of them if it doesn't want to. It can certainly allow the market to really decide which games get the green light because it just has so many properties.
Or it could just keep re-releasing them and people will buy them because they're like, oh, I remember this. This was like from the 90s or something. Nostalgia sells.
Yeah, it does. And it sold to me. I think I've got like 6 different versions of Titan Quest now.
I remember this. I played it in 2017. Oh, the nostalgia.
Yeah. THQ Nordic's in for a really good time when the PlayStation 5 gets announced. Because they'll be like, yeah, okay, we're going to support the PlayStation 5 with 72 games on launch.
Yeah.
And they're all ready to go. What about you, Trent? Tell us of all those THQ Nordic games we've been talking about, which ones appeal to you? You didn't play Kingdoms of Amalur, did you?
No, I feel like I'm really like, there's probably not really much I've actually played of them, and I don't even remember playing D Blob when it was even a THQ game to begin with. I wanted to get it, but I never did. I played the mobile version. Does that count?
There was a mobile version of the Blob?
Yes, there was.
Oh,
it was like less cool, but it existed. There's a few things. Hell, they've published This is the Police. That was cool. That was great. Everyone liked that.
That's right. They did too. They did that one. The second one just came out, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or is coming out. Yeah.
Oh, and they published Legend of K Anniversary, didn't they? I think.
That might be the one I'm thinking about when I said Legend of Korra. It might have been Legend of Korra.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that's THQ Nordic. Yeah.
Yeah, so those sort of games I'd be more excited for, like more of those picking up more indies and the more obscure stuff. A lot of the stuff they've collected into their catalog, I haven't really experienced, so I might pick up them if it's like, oh well, this seems interesting, or this is new, this is exciting. So I don't have the nostalgia to sell me on it, but I've got that. Oh well, I didn't play this last time. If it's coming on the Switch, then yes. Even though I own every single console.
I'll tell you now, Trent. If Time Splitters comes out on Nintendo Switch, you should absolutely pick it up for split screen multiplayer on the go, which would be great. That would be heaven.
Yes,
it would be. It'd be great. Time Splitters is good, very good franchise. And
sold on it because of it sold really heavily on the fact when it first came out, the fact that it was like, GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. Yes, that's the thing. Yeah, like it's sold heavily on the fact that it's like, it's like Rare Games, and it sort of like seemed like it was riding too heavily on, other people's heritage instead of saying this is its own thing. Like, I didn't see too much uniqueness there to be excited for the game, especially at launch. So
it has a level creator.
Everything has a level creator these days.
No, but back then, being able to create,
especially on console.
Yeah, exactly. Back then, being able to create your own multiplayer maps for Time Splitters on console, that was gold. I bought the game originally just for that reason, and I probably ended up spending more time playing it than GoldenEye, I think. I think it was a major part of the multiplayer cycle for a long time at my household. So,
and also just the weird characters and time travel nonsense.
Yeah,
and its complete lack of taking itself seriously.
Yeah,
The self-awareness of how stupid it was. Until the third one, then that kind of tried to...
Oh yeah, I never
Yeah,
played
a bit
Time
more
Splitters.
serious, yeah.
Yeah, it was only Time Splitters 2 that I spent any time playing. I didn't even play the third one, I don't think. I was over the first-person shooters by then. But I will give THQ Nordic a chance with Time Splitters.
Yes.
On that note, let's try and find some Time Splitters music. That'll be good. We'll try and find some Time Splitters music. Again, I can't promise anything because we actually haven't researched the music before recording this podcast this week, which was very naughty of me. Usually we actually pick out our songs beforehand so we know what we're going to play, but we don't right now. And I'm going to set... I'm going to set Alan the challenge of actually trying to find some Time Splitters music to play. If not, as a backup, we might do Titan Quest. There you go. That'll do us. And welcome back, everybody. So for the final section of our podcast this week, we are going to talk about games, amazingly enough.
What?
Yes, I know. That's
Madness.
a shock.
What about movies? Maybe we can want to be a movies podcast now. That'd be cool.
Movies are bad. Only weird people watch movies.
We can talk about Marvel movies because, like, Spider-Man is out. Yeah. I'll
Yeah,
go back
no.
in the corner.
Well, at least the Spider-Man movie was good. Okay, but we are going to talk about games. We're going to talk about games that from the last couple of generations, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, if you want to term them that way, that still haven't had a HD remaster, and we would love to see one. There's not that many of them left because pretty much everything gets HD remastered these days and re-released because it's easy money for the publishers. And fair enough. If they're going to release them, I'm going to buy them. That's for sure. If it's a game I like. But there are a couple. There are a couple that we're still waiting on. I'll start. I'm going to talk about the one that I keep begging Goichi Suda himself to port every time I see him because I go to Tokyo Game Show and he's always around. And we actually do catch up pretty much every year. Lollipop Chainsaw. I really, really want a HD remaster of Lollipop Chainsaw because that was a very good game, good fun action game, kind of brawler, modern brawler, and it was controversial, obviously, because it had a cheerleader and all that kind of stuff. But what people don't seem to realize, I think more the people who haven't played it than the people who have, but it was quite subversive. It was certainly it was not the exploitative kind of experience that you would think about going in. It was kind of the opposite of that, and it was hilarious as a result and really well written. It was actually it was written by James Gunn, the guy who would then go and direct the Guardians of the Galaxy films. So had a lot of talent behind it and was a really good game. I don't know if either of you played it, but it was one I'll certainly recommend if there's a HD remaster of.
I played a bit of it, like usual.
Well, if you played a bit of it, then you probably got pretty much the whole way through. It was only like 4 or 5 hour long game. It was nice and short, which was good. And I do think that's
to a hall, if that makes sense. There was like a gym or something.
You're probably about a third of the way through it then from memory. Yeah. Did you play it, Matt?
I didn't. And I want to, and so I also want a HD remaster, mostly just because of things you've said about it over the years that I've known you.
Yes, I do tend to talk about it a bit because it's just stuck in my memory. It's just such a vibrant, exciting game. It has an amazing soundtrack. It's a lot of licensed music in there, and it's just the music that they've picked for it is just spot on every time. And because it's so short, because it is only 4 or 5 hours long, it never gets dull. There's not a single second in that game that doesn't belong there, and there's no padding, and it's just great. It's a real great game.
That sounds like bad value for money.
Bad value for money, but good value for art. Yeah, there we go. What about you, Matt? What's a game that you are waiting on a HD remaster for, not including Nier, because that goes without saying. That really goes without saying.
Everything, but one game that I am curious to play and never got a chance to, so an HD remaster would be good, is Heavenly Sword, which was, I think it was a PS3 launch title.
Oh, Ninja Theory.
It's Ninja Theory is one of the reasons I want to play it, and unless I'm mistaken, Rihanna Pratchett was the writer of it, who also wrote the first 2 Tomb Raider reboot games and various other things.
Yeah, it's actually a really good game. I never finished it. I played it for about 2 or 3 hours. But it was kind of like God of War, but smart.
It's kind of, and I guess it never, back in PS3 days, it always looked like, from the box art, it looks like this kind of trashy sort of, what's the right word, like low budget pretend God of War game. That's probably not very good, but everything I've learned about it in more recent times makes it sound a lot more interesting than I think a lot of people gave it credit for, and so a remaster would be a very good way to play that.
Yeah, it was kind of the game that Sony used to really show off how good the PS3 was back when it was $1,000, and nobody was ever going to buy it for the first half of its life cycle. So I think a lot of people missed out on it because it was that launch game for a console that nobody wanted at the time. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't see that one happening because Sony owns the rights to it. Obviously, it's a Sony published game, and the developer now belongs to Microsoft. So how that would be resolved would be an interesting one. I actually think that Ninja Theory still owns some rights to it as well, which would just make the licensing of it all the harder. And we'll have that conversation probably in another week again. But yeah, it's the licensing in video games makes it impossible for some of those classics to get a second look, unfortunately. But I hold out hope for your sake, because it was a good game. It was definitely a good game.
Apparently Andy Serkis was one of the directors of it, according to Wikipedia, which is not necessarily accurate, but
it wouldn't surprise me. It really had, especially for its time. I mean, it probably looks a little bit dated now if I was to play it, because it has that realistic character model design going for it, and it was an early era PS3 game, but it certainly had the cinematic qualities at the time, and it was certainly impressive still when I played it in the second half of the PS3's life cycle. But yeah, it'll be good. That'd be a good choice. Good choice, Matt. Very well done.
Yes.
Trent, what about you? Name a PS3 earlier game that you would love to see on, well, on your Switch.
Yes, even though I've got everything on the Switch, only on the Switch. Well, I was, when we were discussing, game titles, I said, Kumi, but, because obviously I've only played the second one, that sort of thing, and it would be great to revisit it. But then I was thinking, what about Lost Kingdoms? Lost Kingdoms 2 was the only one which I played, but great GameCube titles. They were like...
We're going down.
Whoops. We lost Trent there. I think he had to. I think he got a call away to another conversation, but I'll pick up the conversation for Trent's benefit because I did play Lost Kingdoms back on the GameCube, and they were very good games. They were actually From Software games from before Dark Souls, and when From Software was doing things that were not just Dark Souls-ish. But yeah, it was really good. It was like a card game thing where you'd collect the monsters. You'd collect these cards with monsters, and then you'd throw those cards out into the battlefield, and that would summon the monster that would then do the fighting for you. And you needed to, you'd end up with a pretty big deck of cards, and it was kind of like Magic the Gathering meets an action RPG thing. Matt, you wouldn't have played that, but if you played the original, the first Knights of Azure game. It's kind of similar in tone to that.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it was good. It was really good back on the GameCube. And the GameCube didn't have too many JRPGs, so that was nice.
Speaking of GameCube, Eternal Darkness is another one that we...
No.
Yeah, that was a good game. I like that one.
No.
It had great music. It had amazing music.
No.
I've never played it, but I've heard so much about it that I really want to. And
It's one which I really, really wanted as a child. I really wanted that game. So I've gone out, I purchased it since, obviously the GameCube era is long gone. So I've gone out and purchased it. I put it in my GameCube. I fired it all up. I'm like, this is shit. It's not aged well. It's really clunky to play. It's not a great experience.
It is a horror game though, so the clunkiness is kind of excusable within the context of horror games. Again, that's a discussion for Halloween week, I guess, when we'll talk about horror games, I'm sure.
Bad game design is not good horror game design.
No, clunky is good game design in the context of horror, I find. I must say, yeah. I mean, speaking of horror games, I'd love to see some of the Fatal Frame, Project Zero games get pushed onto the Switch. Now that Nintendo part owns that franchise, it would only ever be on the Switch, but I'd love to have Fatal Frame Project Zero 2 on the Switch. That would be great. That's a great game. That's an absolute masterpiece, that is. Tokyo Mirage Sessions, that's the only other Wii U game that I'd actually want to see HDized now that I've got Captain Toad, and I'm pretty happy about that. I don't think there's much else on the Wii U that was actually worth saving.
I'd rebuy all the Zelda remakes. Just putting that out there.
Oh, yeah, the Zelda remakes are too.
I'd rebuy the Metroid Prime trilogy. I know you wouldn't, Matt, but
I'd buy it, just throw it in the bin.
I don't like Metroid, but I don't know. Like, Metroid's always been that weird shooter game Nintendo makes, if that makes sense. Like, I never really got into it, and so I've played the Game Boy Advance ones, that sort of stuff, and I'm like, oh, these are okay. And then I've sort of played a bit of one of the Primes. I can't remember which one. I think it was 2 I had. And I really liked Hunters. Hunters on the DS was great. I'd give it that. And I actually liked the pinball game as well. So if they just remake all the DS ones, then we'd be set.
Metroid is like fan art for Aliens. It just, yeah.
So like how a lot of fan art is better than the original. Yeah, I see what you mean.
No, Matt. That's a very bad take, Matt. What else? I'd love to see Kingsfield 4 to brought into the world of HD and released on consoles like PS4 and Switch. Everybody talks about how great Dark Souls and whatever is. Well, I was a fan of that stuff well before everybody else was. Kingsfield's the hipster Dark Souls. It was a game that was absolutely slaughtered by the press back when it was released, but I played it and loved it obsessively. And I would suggest that actually, if they were to re-release it, it would probably get a different look the second time around. That's one of the good things about re-releasing some of those older games. They give critics and consumers and whatever a chance to reassess what they thought of it, because we mentioned Nier earlier. I think, given what Nier Automata did, I think if people were to replay the original Nier, they'd probably have a different opinion of it, because it was also a bit slaughtered in the press, unfortunately, on release. But yeah, Kingsfield, definitely, if you get a chance, if they give it a HD remaster, get a look into that one. And I'm not sure what else there is, because like I said at the start, a lot of these, an awful lot of games, especially the ones that are actually memorable and worth playing, have actually already had HD re-releases or have HD re-releases on the horizon. So the ones that we've mentioned are probably the relatively few noteworthy ones.
Like if last year we would probably be always saying, "Oh, Catherine needs a re-release." It's getting one.
It's getting one. Yes, yes. It's great. That's exactly right. Or another great example is the Legends of Heroes games. Those were the first two anyway, released on the PS3 and Vita, and did really well, and people love them. But they're getting a PS4 re-release anyway. I don't know if it's actually got an English announcement yet, though. Matt would know if Matt's around.
They don't, and they're both coming out in Japan earlier this year, actually.
The HD remaster of the two of both of them? Yeah. I mean, you've got to assume it'll come.
You'd hope so. Well, you've got to assume that 3 and 4 will come, but there's still no announcement for those either.
Yeah, Exceed's been very lazy recently. Very lazy. They're too busy localizing like the groping Senran Kagura game.
And the London Detective Mysteria, that looks good.
Yeah, but it's not Legends of Heroes, Matt.
Yeah, but it's the same localization editor. Anyway,
yes.
Well, if all goes well, THQ Nordic will listen to this podcast and pick up all of those games.
Yes, they should buy From Software and just re-release all From Software's games. Like 3D Dot Heroes, that needs a re-release. I didn't play that on PlayStation 3 because I didn't have one. If that was on the PlayStation 4, I'd pick that up in a heartbeat.
Oh, yes, that was a From Software game too, yeah. I was going to say Armored Core, because that's the other From Software franchise, but that's actually getting a new game anyway, isn't it? I think they announced it at E3 or something.
I think so. Who's another one of their games is getting remastered. The satire of American military. The one where you play as like the president and the president of America and the giant mech, trying to squash out an uprising.
That's Wolf something, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know which one you're talking about. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah.
The one that is quite obviously, even from promotional material, a satire of American imperialism. But then if you look back at what people were saying about it when it originally released, it's just lots of very things about, oh, this game is so great. America is so great. This game is Japan realizing that America is so great.
That wouldn't surprise me.
So if I Google
anyway.
Digital America, fuck yeah, I get a tweet which says it's Metal Wolf Chaos.
Metal Wolf Chaos, that's
right.
the one.
Devolver Digital's got it somehow.
Oh, Devolver Digital's doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
That's the one that looks really good. Anyway.
Yes, on that note, we're going to wrap the podcast up for the week because, we've been rambling on about video games enough now. We'll give you all a chance to recover until we're back next week. We're going to finish the podcast on some Lollipop Chainsaw music because, great soundtrack.